All right, hey now, it's the Rob from 106.1 KISS FM, all the hits, and 106.1evansville.com. Welcome to another edition of Post to Post. And I'm very excited because, well, I'm not excited that my tag team partner in podcasting, Jerry Valeri, is in the Magic Kingdom right now, but I am excited to introduce today's guest host because this should be a familiar face to a lot of our viewers. And I'm kind of trying to build a little bit of excitement here. I'm not sure it's going very well, but let us bring back to the podcast, to be honest with you, the man who pretty much invented the damn thing. Good morning, Eric Cornish.
How's it going? I don't know if I can take credit for it. I mean, Colt Cabana kind of had something to do with inventing podcasting and things like that. Well, I don't even think he invented it.
This is certainly
wrestling-wise. Yeah.
I would say you definitely brought the idea of podcasting with radio DJs to Evansville, Indiana.
Very true. Very true. And I got to tell you, I'm very excited that you asked me to do this week of all weeks, because I don't know if you realize this, but this week is the 1-year anniversary of our last enhancement talent.
Is that right?
Yeah, this very week was our very last enhancement talent.
Look at that. So we took a 1-year absence, and then we get to have you back on again. Yeah. And I'm glad that we're able to do this. Real quick, how are things going for you?
Things are good. I'm in my hometown of Louisville, Kentucky. I'm around a lot of family, which is great. And still, doing the whole radio thing, enjoying life,
Then I'm happy to hear that, man. That's great. And I'm assuming you're still watching wrestling?
Absolutely. And got a chance to see Raw last night, made my notes, and this is funny. I didn't even do this on purpose, but I made my notes, and this is for you and Jerry, on a Philadelphia cream cheese notepad.
Jerry, listen, Jerry may be from Pennsylvania, but he is no fan of Philadelphia. I promise you that.
No Philadelphia? Okay. All right. Well, sorry, Jerry, for that.
He's a Pittsburgh guy. I'm a Philadelphia guy, so you make me smile.
I gotcha.
Okay, and so I don't know how much you still watch the show. It's kind of evolved a little bit since when you were last here. It's a lot more review and opinion. Like, I take notes on Raw as opposed to topics and stuff like that. There's so much content to talk about now that's kind of what we focused on.
Yeah. Well, they're certainly giving us a lot to watch, and it's tough to get through it all sometimes. But,
it is.
That's kind of the route that I took last night. I've been listening to you guys a lot, and I actually do. Even more than watch you guys, I'll turn you guys on in the car and listen while I drive.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So yeah, you guys are holding it down. And, if you want to get into it, I made some notes on Raw last night. Okay. Let's do it. Man.
Yeah, I did too. My first note had to do with kind of something overarching. It's not really, it's just when the opening promos were going on during Raw last night, I realize, and this is kind of a flaw, although I'm sure it's by design, we have not heard anything from Triple H explaining his actions or resulting in any sort of feud or payoff yet.
Bingo, right there. Where's Triple H?
Yeah.
I wrote it right there. That's a huge flaw, I think.
I agree.
It's fine to hear from Stephanie, but she's married to the man. Quit acting like you have no idea what his thoughts are after a month, okay?
Yeah.
And you got Mick and Steph going back and forth, which, again, way too much authority figure happening on both shows right now when they said they were going to kind of do away with some of that stuff. I'm very confused with the whole Triple H thing, and why hasn't he come out to explain his actions? That's a huge flaw in my opinion.
I feel like if you miss the first week after you do something like that, that's fine. That could build some excitement, some anticipation. But to miss a month with no explanation, like you said, when Stephanie, who's literally in bed with him night after night, is there to explain things and doesn't, that is frustrating.
Right. And especially when you've got that polarizing character with Triple H anyway. Like Stephanie, it's fine. Go ahead and just be the horrible heel. Don't keep mouthing off to the heels sometimes, and sometimes mouthing off to the baby faces. And
right.
I hate that with Stephanie. But then you got Hunter, and he comes out and he does this heelish thing, and then there he is on the Cruiserweight Classic talking about the evolution of the business and. It's too confusing.
Yeah, I agree. To the hardcore fans who are watching all the product, yeah, we see Triple H on Wednesdays, but not Monday. Like, WTF?
Yeah, and you got that hardcore fan, there at the CWC going, thank you, Hunter, and then he comes out and is screwing people. So, but he needs to come out and explain his actions sooner than later, because otherwise it's all going to be forgotten.
As somewhat messy as the beginning was, I thought it did have an advantage. I thought that the spontaneity of the Rusev-Rollins stuff added to the heat that they had going in that match. We went from not knowing the match was going to happen to jumping right into it, and it came in with fire.
Yeah, I love Rusev's resurgence. I mean, this goes back to when we did the show, like when Rusev first made his debut.
Yeah.
And I said I wasn't a fan. I knew what was going to happen. He was going to be this big monster heel. He'd finally lose. He'd go into the comedy stuff, which is kind of what happened. But it looks like they've saved that a little bit, and I like that, because I think he needs to be a top guy.
I think it's safe to say at this point, he's far exceeded our expectations.
Yeah, absolutely.
I assume you got the same show we got in Evansville this weekend, because you had a show in Louisville on Friday night. And
from what I saw, I think it was the exact same show.
Rusev and Reigns, in my opinion, had by far the match of the night here in Evansville.
Yeah, really good. It was a really good match.
Yeah, they gave him a lot of time to play with, and they filled it really well. So Rusev, I think, is on fire. Mixing him up with Rollins, I thought was good. But the way they did it, how you had all the heat of that promo, it all kind of translated into the match. The match had a lot of heat.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed, and I wrote this down, did you notice like how much smaller the stage is than it used to be, and how much lower it is than it used to be? As he's throwing Rusev off the stage, and it's like, well, that didn't seem very exciting.
I guess I didn't, in that they're trying to distract you from that, I guess, because it's so magnificent looking now.
It is. I mean, I love the LED stage and all that stuff, but
yeah,
it was just weird when he threw him off. It was like barely 3 feet, not even 3 feet, I think, and then he jumps off the table, and it was like, yeah, that was okay.
Like, imagine when Raw started, like in '93, if you would just flash forward to 2016 and just show what the set looked like, our heads would explode.
Absolutely.
So there's that. Outside, my only other note about the Rusev and Rollins thing is, I guess Rollins is a babyface, but I'm not positive.
That's another thing that I wrote down during the show, is like, we need desperately Seth Rollins to be a 100% babyface, the top babyface on the show. We have to.
You think? I guess. I mean, I guess
there's
maybe, but
it has to be.
I think he's behaving like a heel.
I know, and that's the problem. That's what I'm saying. He needs to be, and I think toward the end of the show, we kind of got that. I think it finally came around in the main event. But in the middle of the show, when he was acting heelish towards Stephanie, and that was going back and forth, I'm thinking this is the wrong way to do it, because there is no top babyface on the show. There is nobody that's even close. And like Rollins has to be that person, because who else is it going to be? Like the next person you have is maybe Cesaro, and we'll discuss that coming up too.
Well, I mean, I guess I would have said Roman Reigns, but that's its own thing.
Yeah, but then you still, he's still that in between kind of character.
He's not. He's not a lead baby face. I think we've learned that over the past year.
No, and he could be. I mean, he could get there because he's putting in the work. It's just the reaction's not there.
I guess my only thing with Rollins is that he's so natural at being a heel. I feel like it's going to be a tough transition to a face.
Not as natural as Kevin Owens, though.
You're probably right. So, all right, let's talk about, one little note that I took. This might sound stupid to you, but do you know how they have those promos for the WWE Network? And they're very well done. And last week's focused on The Rock, and it said, over 300 rock bottoms and, whatever 100 number of wrestling matches with The Rock. And then last night's focused on Steve Austin, which is great. This is all from my wheelhouse, the Attitude Era, stuff that I think people want to see who are buying the network. I was surprised that Rock's video promotes 300 rock bottoms and Austin's promotes 200 stunners. I would have assumed there were more stunners in the history of wrestling than rock bottoms.
I would think so too.
But
I didn't notice that, but you're right. I think there were way more stunners.
That's just what I mean. I haven't counted, obviously, and I'm not about to start. Yeah. But that surprised me. Also, I wanted to talk about the steel cage for a second, and I want to give that some credit in that during the Attitude Era, I thought that the cage would become a crutch, but now it's used so rarely that it is kind of feeling special again.
Yeah, and here's what I liked about the main event last night is then you talk about the network, because I've gone back to the network and I've started watching. I started watching Monday Night Raw beginning '97, and I've watched it in order all the way through, and I'm now about mid '98 right now. So
that sounds awesome, by the way.
What's that?
That sounds awesome, by the way.
Oh yeah, I wanted to kind of get an idea of like what Raw looked like then and why now is different, and that's one of the things. I mean, now the writing is so formatic. I mean, you know what's going to happen. You can kind of predict what's going to happen, and then they would just have matches just because, and and tie in storylines together. And throw in a stipulation like the cage match. Well, here it made sense because people interfered last week.
Yeah, and they fought a few times already.
Right, and I like the way that it all intertwined. The storylines are intertwining. Like Roman wants a title shot, but he didn't get his title shot, but he's going for the U.S. title. But Rusev is, he doesn't like Seth Rollins because they just had this big thing. So, I mean, it all makes sense, and it intertwines, and it's kind of reverting a little bit back to how those storylines work. So I like that.
Yeah,
I like the use of the cage in this case.
As long as you don't overuse it, I think it's great. So, but I wasn't
absolutely.
I'm not at the main event yet. I was just kind of talking about that stipulation because I guess they probably showed something about the cage. Yawn, another 3-way championship match, this time for the women's title. Not too excited about that. They're leaning on the 3-ways, I feel like.
I think so too. And I don't know that was the original plan. I feel like the finish of last week's match was a mistake. Like, I don't think it was meant to finish like that. But I noticed the shoulders being out too.
Yeah, that was the first thing I noticed when the pin happened last week, was all 4 shoulders were down. Yeah,
I think that was a mistake, and I think there would have been a better way to handle it. I love the fact that you've got Dana Brooke there, and she's saying, well, this is the way it should go. Really, if you're Dana Brooke and you're a heel, shouldn't you go, hey, both of their shoulders were down, I won the match? Like, why is she advocating that they both wrestled? I don't get that.
I don't think anyone's going to accuse her of being too smart.
No, but you know what? I don't hate Dana Brooke, and I think she's got a long way to go.
Yeah, I agree with that.
She overdoes it a little bit. But I think if they keep her with Charlotte long enough, you could have a nice program between those two, and Dana could make a nice little babyface.
On the same token, while we're talking about giving things time and fleshing things out, I love Bayley, but don't want her to win on Sunday. I would love for she should have. Because the millennial way of doing things is to just rocket ship these NXT stars up into titles.
I agree.
And let's let her chase for a little while, like maybe even a long time, and then let her seize and have this huge moment.
Here's what I'd like to see is, and I don't like this triple threat so early because I think it's going to be a great match, and these 3 will put on a phenomenal match. I think it's too soon. But I think what we're going to see is a very slow burn. I think Charlotte comes out as a winner, and they tease it just a little, just very, very subtly last night. I think we lead up to Bayley and Sasha at WrestleMania, if it can wait that long. But I think that's where it should go.
That's what I'm thinking.
And I don't know if it's the title or not.
I agree. I don't know that it can last that long, but that's a good timeline. So
yeah, and then on the other side, I think there's one specific female that needs to leave the Raw roster and go to the SmackDown roster, and that's Nia Jax. I think she needs to be on the SmackDown roster.
Why do you say that?
Well, if you look at the females that you have on the Raw roster, and you've got Bayley and you've got Sasha and you've got Charlotte and Dana Brooke's coming along, and now Paige is coming back. We think, but we don't know. I think that it would make much more sense to put Nia Jax over there on the SmackDown roster than you've got a legitimate heel to chase Becky. I think that's a better place for her to be.
I'll do you one better. I think that they should all be on one show.
Well, and there's a thought too. Yeah, I agree. So I think that's not a bad idea there.
We have a tradition on this show now of shouting out the jobbers. I mean, the original name of the show was the Enhancement Talent, and I want to shout out last night's 2 jobbers. The first I'll shout out is the one for Bo Dallas. That was Gary Graham. Even got himself a Let's Go Jobber chant. And then I also want to shout out the jobber for Braun Strowman. That was Sin Cara. So shout out both of those jobbers who got some FaceTime last night.
Not only did Sin Cara job to Braun Strowman on Raw, but I take it he did it in Evansville and Louisville this weekend as well.
He sure did.
And that was a very similar match. And let me say this about Braun Strowman. He has gotten so much better.
Yeah, he's doing all right.
I like the way he's working. And here's what I suggest for him. Let's change the gear and let him talk. I don't know if you heard Austin's podcast when he was on there. This guy has got a lot to say. And he's a very well-spoken guy.
But should his character be speaking?
I think so. I think he could be a completely different character. I mean, I don't think he needs to be this. If you're splitting up the Wyatt family, split him up. Don't keep him in. So it's the same deal with like Eric Rowan. Is he in? Is he out? I don't know.
My thing about that is like it was so dumb the way they handled splitting up the Wyatts, how they drafted one to one show and one to another. Like my thought is like from a if wrestling is real point of view, if you could take groups or you could take individuals, but why would you ever take an individual when you could get 4 people for one pick?
Yeah, I know it seems a little ridiculous, but
I do think
they did, and they got Braun. Just kind of subtly change. They changed his haircut already. They changed the music. Okay, fine. Now change the attire a little bit, and then slowly let him talk. Because he's a big old country boy, but he's very smart, and he was a power lifter. And listening to him on with Austin, I'm like, man, let this guy talk. It would be great.
I do think that he's going to do better without the Wyatt family. He just needs to have some sort of identity. And I think that I'm pulling for him to do well. I think he's got potential too. They did a lot of promotion for the Cruiserweights last night. I was happy to see that because I was and still am legit excited for them. Not only did they get a lot of promotion, they got a lot of time. They used their time well, I thought, and so that was good. I guess we'll be jumping ahead a bit, but okay, go ahead.
I have mixed feelings on this, and first of all, first thing I want to say is stop scripting Mick Foley.
One of my notes was he really had a tough time with that intro.
And it's not Mick's fault. Mick is one of the best authority figures there's ever been. 2000, 2001, he killed it.
He's the original commissioner.
Stop scripting him. Stop telling him what to say.
I can understand that. But then again, if his job is to go out there and put over the Cruiserweights and you introduce the 4 competitors, I guess, you have to follow certain.
Do that?
You make a good point.
Was that necessary for him to do it?
That's a good point. You're right.
You could have run the packages that you ran earlier in the show, bring those guys out, and just let them work.
I was glad those guys all had revamped entrances as opposed to the CWC. Yeah. I guess I expected them last night to just kind of have a generic Titantron like they did at the CWC and generic theme music, but it looks like they're all getting some care and attention. Not positive they chose the 4 best choices for the first match, but they put on a great show.
They did, and I think that when you look at this, it's like I said, I have mixed feelings about it because the CWC was so good on the network.
Loved it.
I feel like what they should have done is maybe take 4 or 5 guys like they did, sign them, bring them to the main roster, but not necessarily feature them as cruiserweights. Just bring them to the roster and let them do their thing. Put some of them in NXT. Kendrick, he's fine. He's got experience. Bring him to the main roster and let him do whatever.
Hey, by the way, go ahead.
Yeah, well, and then what you do is a year later you come back and you run the CWC again. I don't think we need a cruiserweight champion. Especially when you look at guys like Finn Balor who meet the weight requirements, whether they want to say he does or not.
Right.
It's going to be very strange if he comes back and he wins the Universal Championship, but then you've got a guy like, Cedric Alexander who really weighs more than Finn Balor.
Sure, yeah, you make a good point. I guess I'm excited about that belt. I guess this point I disagree with you on. I did get excitement with the Cruiserweight division and a belt, but you make a good point.
Yeah, the CWC was so good as it was, the second time around, well, the title's not going to be on the line, And if they say they've got the best cruiserweights in the world, why isn't Neville in that tournament? Why isn't Kalisto in that tournament? Why isn't Finn Balor in that tournament? You know what I mean?
No, I'm not saying you're wrong. You make sense.
So I don't know. Unless you were going to treat the whole thing as as good as the heavyweight division, kind of like UFC, to where, on any given day, a different weight class could be the main event. But I don't think they'll ever do that. I don't think, it's gone too long in the opposite direction. So,
to further up on the Brian Kendrick thing, he said in his promo he was with the WWE until 2009. He was on Raw until 2009. I would have guessed 2006. I didn't realize he was here until 2009.
Well, he made his return, and I don't know that he was back on Raw, but he was definitely on SmackDown.
He had said it's been. I thought he said I thought he said the last time he was on Raw was 2009. I thought that's what he said.
Well, I mean, I think that was the last time he was in the company, because he was drafted to SmackDown, I believe, as the Brian Kendrick, and was with Ezekiel Jackson. So
yeah, I was not paying much attention to SmackDown back then. I really wasn't.
And that was the six-pack challenge where Jericho ended up with the title, I believe, and Kendrick officially during that match became the champion at one point. So
I don't know that I count those as title runs.
No,
yeah,
and they don't in the lineage, but in that match they actually had the graphic on the screen that said current champion. So Brian Kendrick officially, according to that match, was a champion.
That will make Jerry lose his mind when he hears that.
Yeah.
Bringing up Jericho, my next note is actually about Jericho. What did you think about, quote, the list of Jericho?
I love Jericho. I love what he's doing now. I think
Agreed.
It's some of the best stuff he's done in a long time. Although I've always loved Jericho. Jericho's in my top 5 as far as performers.
Yeah, but he is really embodying what he used to do.
Yeah. I mean, he's killing it. I mean, I actually wrote that down. Jericho is killing it.
I mean,
I don't necessarily like the everybody's music hits and comes out and then we set up a match. I mean, that's too predictable. But if Jericho's in the midst of all that stuff, God, he's so good at that.
The list of Jericho reminded me of the Man of 1,004 Holds.
Yes. That was my first thought too.
And everything I'm comparing his work to is his WCW heyday stuff. And that is so encouraging to me that he's doing work like that at this point in his career.
Yeah, and his work in the ring is great too. And, it's like he's just, I mean, he needs one more run with the title. I don't think it's going to happen, but, I mean, he could easily go in there, him and Owen start something up. But I mean, he's doing so great right now. It's everything he does is gold.
And then I don't have anything else until the main event. Did you want to jump to that, or do you have anything else you want to mention?
The only other thing I have is in that tag team match, they've got to fix this because there were 3 whiffed big boots in that match in a row.
Really?
I don't know if you noticed that.
No, I didn't.
Yeah. Big Cass threw a big boot, completely whiffed and smacked his leg. Then Gallows did it, and then you went in for the haluva kick, and Sami Zayn did it. All 3 of them completely missed their big boots, and it was like 3 spots right in a row, and that just was glaring to me. But,
I learned this morning that Xavier was on the outside filming on his cell phone for World Star Hip Hop. Did you see that?
Nice.
It was really because there's this ridiculous brawl going on in the ring, and I guess the slang is when you record fights, you send them to a website called World Star Hip Hop, and you keep shouting World Star in the video to get them get them to play it, and that's what he was doing. So just kind of to remind people that he's a millennial and he's he gets all the nerd references and just keeping his character going at all times.
Yeah, I love the interaction lately between the New Day and also Enzo and Cass. I think that's great. There's going to have to be a collision at some point, I do think, between them, whether it's New Day going heel again or something. I don't know, but I love the interaction at the house show. I love the interaction on TV, and I love the fact that you had Kofi on your show once again. I actually had Big Cass on my show.
Did you really?
Yes, I did.
It was my 4th time with Kofi.
That's cool.
Yes.
Yeah, Kofi's our buddy.
That's great. How was Big Cass? Kofi's
Cass
always
awesome.
always good. How was Cass?
Yeah, Cass was really good. He was a lot of fun, and we talked about his last trip to Louisville that was documented on Breaking Ground, and at the music festival in the mud, and how it was like to move up to the Yum Center, and so anyway, no, he was good, very very cool guy, and we got to spell soft together, so that was fun.
Nice, that's cool. And then, so what do you want to say about the main event?
Solid match.
Yeah, I agree.
It's still weird when you have a cage match to where you can escape and you can pin in the match. There needs to be one rule or the other.
Let's be real. It just needs to be a blue cage again. Let's just be real.
Yeah, I suppose. But anyway, good match. I liked Seth coming out to make the save on Roman Reigns. Seems like, especially with the dive off the top, which the first thing I'm thinking is, dude, you've got a bad knee. Like, why are you doing this? But I think that was a good step in the right direction for him to be 100% face like he needs to be, especially going into this match on Sunday. So,
right, man. Thank you so much for being a part of the podcast again. I mean, it's great having you on.
Yeah, and I'm up for it anytime. Always up for talking wrestling. As you know, we did it before there was ever a podcast, and we continue to do it to this day.
I always pay tribute to you. This was your baby. I'm happy to just kind of be holding it right now and just hoping I'm making you proud every time I do a podcast.
Let me ask you one thing. Is that Gavin standing outside the door out there?
Hey, Gavin.
Batman shirt
come in.
Glaring.
Hold on. Well, you're not going to come through the speakers, but Cornice wants to say hello to you. You're not going to hear him, but Eric's saying hi.
I saw the Batman shirt, and I had to say hello.
Hold on. Let's pull him up. There he is. Yeah, that is Gavin. Gavin's doing well. He's our midday superstar now. He's on board with us all the time.
He's amazing.
Yeah, he's doing a great job.
We need another title, midday superstar title. Well, why not? Everybody else has got one.
If there is a midday superstar title, I promise you, Gavin is the champion. Got to sign off because Gavin needs to take over the studio. Well,
thank you for having me, and anytime.
Thank you for being a part of the show, and I will sign off now. And like I said, I appreciate you being a part of the show, and of course, I do consider this to be your baby. So thank you so much for having me be a part of this from the word go. And hopefully we'll get you on again sometime soon, buddy.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
For myself, my tag team partner, Eric Cornish, I will say goodbye, and we'll be back again on Thursday with another edition of Post to Post.